Welcome, everyone. Another session of Automation in Action podcast. Today we have Gary Grunewald. Gary, just to give a little background, was one of our customers back in 2017. He was the CFO of Pine State. He later became the president. We kind of got into the beverage distribution market because of Gary, a very progressive thinker. Essentially bought every one of our products, and initial focus was on AP automation, and then kind of morphed into these 12 different other use cases, most of them with robotic process automation. So very kind of a unique conversation that we haven't had with a particular customer. Now Gary's moved on from Pine State. He's in M&A activity, looking to purchase companies of value, and wanted to introduce Gary Grunwald to everybody, all our listeners. Thanks for joining, Gary. I appreciate the time.
Absolutely, it's great to be here, Brent, and always have appreciated the partnership.
Well, wonderful. So, just a couple questions to get going. As a software architect, it's always, who's involved in this pre-sales process, it's always hard to find progressive kind of business owners, and you certainly were that type of person. You know, as a business leader who is very progressive, what kind of makes you that way?
It's a good question. I think it's just always that I'm always inquisitive. I've been that way ever since I was a little kid, and always trying to figure out what's next. If I could try to find something that's better than what we're doing right now, or what I'm doing right now, and that's just how I've always been. And I've kind of taken that into my business life. And some people will probably shudder at this thought, but I'm a firm believer that all change is good. Sometimes just
Your
for the
employees don't
sake of
probably think
change.
that. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people
Um,
don't think that way, and that's very unique. And I think the traits, inquisitive, curious, I think are some of those
yes.
traits. I think that because we deal with a lot of, and just outside of beverage distribution, but a lot of buyers, and a lot of them are dead wood. They just don't want to do the work to improve the process. And I think what was really enlightening working with you is you knew what you wanted, and you could explain what you wanted. And ultimately, I think, if you think back to 2017, what was it that kind of piqued your interest in AP automation? Was it that we pitched it to you? I remember you had like a bunch of temps and you were having trouble hiring. What was kind of the impetus to kind of sign on with us?
Yeah, so I at that point in 2017, I'd been a CFO for over 15 years, and I had been at a bunch of companies, and I had seen process and procedures put in place over time, and had gone, and most of them had been smaller companies, and then had gotten to Pine State. And at Pine State, I mean, it was a huge company. It was over $1 billion in revenue when I started, over 1,000 employees, and we just had an inordinate amount of paper. I can remember calculating at one point we had this gate on one of our properties that was about a mile away from the road. And if you stood up reams of paper on edge, on the short edge, stood them up, we had used enough paper to line that entire road. And I was like, that just doesn't work. And also, we had all this paper that we then had to store and access. And and the way that we were doing AP at the time is it involved a lot of paper that was then moving around the office and getting lost, and people weren't getting paid on time, and we had unhappy vendors and unhappy managers that had stacks and stacks of paper on their desks. So I knew that I didn't want any of that. I've been a tree hugger as well, inquisitive and a tree hugger, and so I wanted to get rid of the paper. but I also saw the benefit of the fact that we weren't going to have to store all this paper that you never could ever get back to. Right? I mean, you hoped that you had marked the boxes correctly and that it
Yeah,
was on the
right.
pallet that you thought it was on and all that stuff. But if you needed to do some research, it could take you weeks to even get the
And would
right
you have
box.
audits? Would you have like annual
Oh,
audits? And
absolutely. Yeah.
so
Well,
it helped, right?
even somebody would come to you and say, "Oh, you didn't pay me." Well, yeah, we did, but I couldn't prove it because you couldn't find the paperwork to
Right.
show that you paid. So, PIF introducing all of this technology around, one, getting the accounts payable into the system, but then having the document management behind it that allowed us to source all of the original documents. I mean, it just made it so everything was so much more efficient. And
So
yes, we
pain
did.
was really around the document management initially. I didn't realize that. So your core kind of pain was around document management, managing the amount of paper. And then the
at
other
at
stuff
at,
got added.
at Pine State, that, I mean, that definitely was like the impetus of, okay, we need to do something here differently. Was all of the paper in the document management? Yes.
And then, so, fast forward to like, I don't know, 2019. And I think we started looking at things like bailments and depletion allowances. And I mean, not so
Yeah.
important about the actual use case, but we really got you in, so we used RPA initially
Yeah.
to just get the data in the VIP. VIP is the ERP system that most beverage companies use, and there's no hook. So we needed that to do that. And we used a knowledge like ratchet soft tool, which later got replaced with UiPath. And then we got into these, like, I would say 9 or 10 ancillary processes, bailments, bill backs, depletions, samples, unsaleables, blah, 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 blah. What, so once you saw the AP work, I think you said to yourself, how can we leverage this additional technology to automate and remove data entry? Was that the thinking
Exactly.
there?
So in an earlier question, you had mentioned, or you'd asked, you had all these temps that were doing stuff and you were having trouble hiring people. So that always is an issue. And it's gotten much worse, 2019 into COVID. It's just harder to hire people and it's harder to keep people interested once you have them. So I saw these robots as a way to elevate what people were doing. So to get them away from data entry and get
Low
them into
value,
actually,
right?
you know, doing stuff that was really adding value to the business and also hopefully making their jobs a little more interesting than just coming in for 8 hours, 10 hours a day and key whacking all day. So that was kind of that next thing is, yes, we had a lot of data entry that happened. And as you know, Brett, you and I have talked in the past, I look at every keystroke as a chance to make an error as well, where the robots never make an error. The data that's given to them, they enter. And
Right.
a human makes 10,000 keystrokes in a month, right? And
They're
they are
definitely going to make
99
some,
point
right?
right? If they're
Nine.
99.9% accurate, they're still making a ton of errors. And 99.9% accurate is amazingly accurate. So,
Yeah.
um,
Interesting.
yes,
And I would think, really we didn't get exposed to beverage distribution until really you. I mean, we've done some things with Burke distributing in Massachusetts, but it was really around proof of delivery, and that kind of use case dried up because I believe you use mobile, VIP has like a mobile proof of delivery thing.
they do.
But
Yes,
so
yeah,
yeah, so uh, we didn't really have a lot of experience there, and now that we're in beverage and we're at the MBWA every other year, and we're out at BevAge, and we're really getting into the beverage industry. You know, I a lot of these companies are family-owned companies that have been around so long, and the alcohol business by state is very interesting. There's a lot of barriers there. I guess, what are the challenges you're seeing in the beverage market? And, specifically, why a lot of these guys, distributors, haven't really embraced the technology like you had? What's going on with that industry?
Well, I mean, it's a great industry, so I don't want to make this sound negative at all, because it really is a fabulous industry. It's a fun industry, great people, um, but they in most states, almost all states, you're given a franchise for the brands that you have, which means yes, you're competing. You know, Molson Coors
Or is
distributors are competing with the ABI
AB?
distributors, but no one is competing with you on the Molson Coors brand. So you don't have to be as efficient and as aggressive on a lot of this type of stuff because you have the franchise.
It's
So I think that
exclusivity, right? It's basically
it it is,
exclusivity.
and I think it breeds a little bit of complacency.
It's a complete,
Um,
yeah,
so um, and I think that's, you know, you don't have to do these types of things. It makes your business a lot better. It makes your business a lot more efficient. Once again, it makes your employees' lives, I think, a lot more enjoyable. I hope a lot more enjoyable. And and you know, and I think at the end of the day, it once again, I mean, that's just me. I'm just
yeah,
constantly trying to make things better.
right.
But
And it's hard to find people
it
like you,
yeah,
really.
it does. At the end of the day, it makes your business better.
Where did you see the most, I don't know, bang for the buck as it relates to the automation that we implemented? Was it primarily in labor savings, productivity savings, a little bit of both? I mean, things just you had visibility. I mean, what was the biggest thing that had the biggest impact?
Yeah, so I think I would say the very first thing is was an increase in efficiency and productivity that allowed us to realize labor savings.
Hmm.
And not Pine State did not lay off a single person. You know, people just transitioned to other jobs,
Right.
or they decided to leave the company. But um, it when so Pine State was this $1 billion company. We sold off a bunch of divisions, and when we started focusing on beverage, I believe we had 5 or 6 people focusing on accounts payable, 5 or 6 people focusing on accounts receivable, and we got that number down to about 2.5 and 3, or 3 and 2.5. And um, so we realized the labor savings there. But then, as I had discussed earlier, you know, Pine State used to have all of these. Well, I didn't say this, but Pine State's had all of these depots all over the
Hmm.
Northeast. So we would just be able to store pallets of paper everywhere. And then when you needed some, you just, oh, hey, you know, when the truck goes down there tomorrow, you know, send back that pallet that's got that on it, and we'll go through it and see if we can find something. Um, Now we don't do that. Now we just go into DocStar and
And
do some
search.
keyword searches, and boom, you've got all the documentation that you need, and you can email it to people. And your customers like that. Your suppliers love it because they know that they can go to you and get the honest truth with real documentation immediately, rather than, oh, hey, I'll get back to you in a week or two. It was like, oh, you know, you need proof of payment,
Actually,
you need
no.
proof of delivery, you need proof of whatever. I got it, and boom, and you send it over to them.
And a lot of people, I would say a lot of CFOs probably think, I don't want to pay my vendors quicker and easier. Like I want to control cash and I want to bring in cash quicker, not pay people quicker. But to your point, I would assume suppliers get, you know, you're not paying them or doing it on time or doing it efficiently. I'm sure your relationship gets tarnished, right? I mean,
Absolutely, yes, and I am a tree hugger, inquisitive, and a cash lover. So I absolutely hold cash as much as possible. But you know, when you're paying your suppliers on time, you can kind of get into a cash cadence or cash holding cadence, rather than, you know, the you know, when the process wasn't as smooth as it is now. You know, you'd have a supplier call you up and say, you haven't paid me, and then all of a sudden you've got this huge chunk of cash coming out of your business. You know, with Molson Coors Gallo, I mean,
right.
you're buying a lot from them at one time, and now it's just steady. You can plan on it. and it once again it just
It
makes
allows you
things
to
flow better.
control, right? Yeah, it's just a standard,
Exactly.
allows you to control. There's rules and policies and
Right.
guardrails, so to speak. And I think
Yep.
that's a big
Yep.
benefit to what we provide.
Yep.
Just to take a
And
little,
one
yeah,
last thing
yeah,
on
yeah.
that, sorry, Brent, to interrupt, but one
No,
last
no.
thing on that, it allowed us to take advantage of discounts more often, right?
Huh.
So a 210, 110 discount, which a lot of times before you couldn't get things processed quickly enough to actually take advantage of that discount, where Pine State was able to save thousands of dollars a year in being able to take the discounts.
That's an interesting those discounts because I don't see a lot of that in vendor payment terms. Like, obviously there's certain vendors that allow for that, but
Yep.
to take advantage of early pay, that was always like 10, 15 years ago, that was always like the push. And fewer suppliers are offering that. Do you see that? Like, is that like even a viable reason just to do AP automation just for that reason?
It really depends on the industry. And in the beverage industry, there are enough suppliers that offer that it does add some value, but I don't think it would pay for it. But it helps on the ROI or the
Yeah.
IRR significantly. Yeah,
What
yeah.
so it's funny because I think beverage, beer, non-alc, and a lot of people don't understand beverage distribution, but beer, wine, spirits. I mean, we all participate in that. That's part of our American culture. What is like profit is like? Do you make money on beer and wine, or is it like you sell beer and wine because you have to, and you make the money on the non-alc stuff like water and snacks? What drives that industry from a margin perspective?
So you definitely make money on the beer and wine.
You do. Okay.
Yeah, and some of that comes from the franchise protection that you have, so you don't have the competition driving down
Pricing.
your price. But and the non-alc business, it depends on the supplier. There are some suppliers, like typically water heavy, and doesn't sell for a lot. I mean, you go into the grocery store, you're
Right.
not paying a ton for water, so there isn't as much money in some non-alcs, but other non-alcs like some of the probiotics and kombuchas and those kind of things, you do make some money on that. Yeah.
Where do you see, like, you're always looking for other avenues of revenue? Like, in Maine is legalized. Are you getting more? What like was CBD drinks starting to come out? Like, where does the industry go from here? I mean, I know there's tons of beverages now that you've never even seen. They did a hard seltzer beer at Northwind Brewery, which was I've never heard of that. But to your point, there's probiotics and kombuchas and all these energy drinks, more non-alc, I would say, than ever. People are usually either
Right.
water or soda. Where's the kind of area of expansion? Is there other products that are natural to the distribution market?
Yeah. So I think CBD and some THC products down the road. And CBD is somewhat legal depending on who you talk to. Some
Right.
THC products are somewhat legal depending on who you talk to. Um, I do think that there will be a place for that in the beverage distribution space down the road once there is some more clarity there.
From the
And
government, right? Because
from the government,
you
yep,
don't want to be
yep,
taking products that aren't. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of like, hey, I don't know what to do with this, but I have seen other beverage distributors like in Kansas City, and I think Tennessee. They do offer some of those hemp
oh, absolutely,
products
yep,
or something like
yep.
that. Very
Yeah, and
interesting.
I think Minnesota. I think it's Minnesota. Just did something with one of the variations of THC, and a bunch of beverage distributors out there, or beer and
Yeah,
wine
that
distributors
Delta
out there.
9 or something where
Yes,
it's hemp
exactly.
product and then you can just sell it, which is very interesting because that starts showing up in your gas station refrigerator, like as a someone like me that grew up with that's not legal.
Right.
Very interesting to kind of see that. Now, have you heard about the Southern Glazers that FTC, Federal Trade Commission, is suing them for because of price. I don't know that it's price fixing, but because they have such a exclusivity in a particular large region. They're one of, I think they sell like millions and millions and millions of cases a year. Have you seen that? And that's kind of unique. I mean, I haven't seen. I don't know the beverage that well, but industry that well. But have you seen why that's happening and why the government's getting involved?
So I have not.
Okay.
I think I'd read something that the FTC was doing something with Glazers, but I didn't. I don't know. I mean, Glazers is a huge firm. It is
Right.
amazingly well run. They are like on the marketing side, on the customer and supplier management side, they are an incredible firm. So I could see them getting very large customer penetration or market share, and the FTC may be questioning that, but I don't know. I mean, just
Yeah,
because they're
it's
so successful, you know.
right. And I
Yeah,
mean, what do you
yeah,
do? You're exclusive to
yeah,
that market. You offer a certain price. It's so it was
yeah,
interesting to see the government get involved in
yeah.
that. But it take a little right turn on you. You know, you're now involved in, M&A activity, private equity, possibly. What types of companies are you looking to acquire, and what space maybe? What revenue? What's a sweet spot for you in looking at organizations to purchase?
Yeah, so also a very good question and a hard question to answer. So I live in Maine, and Maine is not necessarily, and I'm not necessarily 100% focusing on Maine, but um, the economy in Maine is not as large as it might be in Massachusetts or even New Hampshire,
Right.
where you are, Brent. But so I can't say that I'm focusing on any one particular industry. But I will say that my experience and would be great to find companies in where I have experience. Originally was in technology, so in um, companies that provide technology to customers, not necessarily owning the IP themselves, but providing technology. So that's one space that would be
Like a
great.
VAR, like a system integrator.
Yeah,
So
like a
more
system integrator.
technology focused. Yeah. So not
Yeah.
low tech, like landscaping and, things like, yeah, yeah.
Probably would not be as interested in a landscaping company.
Although
Um,
electricians and plumbers, I tell you, I can't even get an electrician or plumber to come out. There's got
yeah,
to be something there
yeah,
commercially.
I have looked at some HVAC companies. I think
Mm,
there's an opportunity there, um,
absolutely.
but but then the other industry is obviously beverage. So I'd love to find something manufacturing, distribution space on the beverage side, alc, non-alc, whatever. But I'm not uh,
Shoehorning any
yeah, I'm not
industry or
shoehorning
anything.
or I'm not poo-pooing it. I don't want to do manufacturing, but because I think there's opportunity there. Really, for me, I'm looking for a company, and I'm sure everybody that's doing what I'm doing is looking for companies like this. So I mean, this isn't novel, but I'm looking for a company that that has been really well run, but bringing in some new blood or bringing in some new energy, bringing somebody like myself that really embraces technology, I can make the company more efficient and hopefully use it as a
Grow.
platform to grow and to maybe do some other acquisitions.
So you're looking for
Uh,
profitable, revenue heavy, companies that maybe just, didn't have the moxie, so to speak, to invest in the organization, get to the next level. I mean, you're looking to
exactly.
take something you're not looking for a loss leader type company that you have to turn around. Nobody wants that, right? And I assume
Right.
you don't want
Right.
to have a heavily capitalized company, something you have to buy a lot of inventory for, but clearly in a distribution you'd have to do that. But as a
Yep.
VAR, and that's how we make money is
Yep.
we resell products. So we get paid and then we go buy the license, right? So
Right.
a lot of
Right.
ours is the labor of the implementation. But I
Yep.
I would you know, professional services, while we do really well, I think the cost of labor and the cost of technology and education to find the right people, certainly up in our area, Maine, New Hampshire, there's the center of commerce in Manchester is, tiny, although even smaller probably in your area, neck of the woods. You're up, of course, of Portland. I know you're moving to Massachusetts, but what are the metrics you look at? Is it revenue run rate? Is it profitability? Is it you know labor costs? Like I assume all of that goes into the equation, right?
Absolutely. My first kind of uh, the first thing that I look at is to make sure that the company has enough profitability so that way it can absorb some changes. And so, I don't want to be purchase a company that is struggling to make payroll every week.
Sorry about that.
Yeah,
I was going to say, you obviously going to have a debt service or something, where you want something
absolutely.
profitable enough that's throwing enough cash so that you can recoup your investment in a reasonable amount of time. What amount of time is that? So if you're investing in an organization, what's the pay? Not the payout where you're exiting, but
Yep.
what makes sense for you? From that perspective, when you're looking, do you want to get out in 5 or 10? Your investment.
Yeah, so I think I'm taking a little bit longer view than probably most, and I'm in the definitely longer than 5 and probably in the 10-year time frame of what I'm looking for. It's to earn my return. I'm definitely not looking for a quick flip. Um, but
And then
yeah.
you would want to get involved. Clearly, you're someone that wants to be involved, so you would be a hands-on kind of guy, not a shadow
Uh,
investor, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I've looked at a company already that was a great company, had a great business, great customers, but they had just hired a new management team, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to
Yeah.
add any value then, so I'm not interested. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, Gary, appreciate the time. It was great talking with you. Love talking to other, business owners, people that have been in the industry, certainly technology savvy. Any, parting words for our viewers?
You know, I nothing that's going to be earth shattering, other than I think what I've already said is, it's really, in my mind, it's really important to be constantly looking at your business and trying to figure out ways to make it better, and not just to put more money into the owner's pockets or the shareholders' pockets, but also at the end of the day, you want to make it a better business for everybody. So all of your stakeholders, yes,
Reinvesting.
yes, the investors, but your employees and your customers in the community. And this technology that you guys are offering really hits on a lot of those key core stakeholders. That's why, I mean,
No, it's
that's
a
why I'm
great,
such a big fan,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
and
you
and
have
why.
been. You've been a great proponent
Yeah,
of ours for many
yeah,
years. And,
yeah,
to find buyers like you, that's ultimately where we look for because you care and you want to do better. And there's a lot of dead wood and there's a lot of complacency in every industry for that matter. And I
absolutely.
think
Yeah,
people are afraid of technology, and someone that's technology savvy is going to move forward with those types of things. So, a lot of our sale is psychology based. It's trying to find
sure.
somebody like yourself that wants to do good, and that's a needle in a haystack at this point. But so I wish you luck. If you ever need anything, certainly reach out. We value you and your business, and I appreciate the time on the podcast.
Sounds great. Well, I hopefully will purchase something here quickly, and I'll look forward to doing a new implementation.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Brent. Great talking with you.